Okay, so we still have 10 minutes left. So basically, maybe just say a few things, and then we can do maybe a little chanting, a little pay homage to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, the senior monks, and then maybe a little group photo, something like that, and call it a night. So earlier today we were talking a little bit about the benefits of kind of retreat. Kind of a retreat is an opportunity to participate in a culture that we wouldn't normally participate in. And in fact, kind of very unusual, you think of it, kind of most people in the world, what they're up to, going to work, making money, and that money is spent for amusing sights, amusing smells, kind of these various external things that will give them a lot of happiness. And people protect these things. They value these things. They love these things. Protecting these things, valuing them, loving them, grabbing onto them, when these things change, that's precisely what causes people to suffer. There's external acquisitions, things that people own, that people think are mine, they change in a way that one doesn't like, and that's it. Suffering ensues. Suffering is the result of this kind of clinging, this grasping to things external to us. Now, because these things in the external world are so loved, are so cherished, for a person who goes against the grain of these things, who looks for something that isn't so dependent on these things, who looks for something safer, what they're doing is they're going against the grain of society. They're going against the grain of the world. They're going against the way that these things work. They're going against most people's raison d'être. And raison d'être, maybe eat. I don't know if that's the way to say eat in French. Être means to be, reason for being, and reason for eating. Eat various external things. So it's good when one wants to go against the grain of these things to have a culture that goes that way, that flows opposite to the way the streams of the world usually flow. And this is a culture that gets created when people come together with the intentions to find a happiness that's true, to find a happiness that's real, to find a happiness that's safe. And so on a retreat like this, what we actually do, we come together with these intentions to create a mini culture, a mini society for the period of the retreat, for the period of, this was, I guess, 4 hours, or whether it's half a day. We come together to try to create the same culture that the Arahants created, to have the same practices that the Arahants practiced, to have the same intentions that the Arahants had, and hopefully to put the same causes into place that the Arahants put into place to gain liberation, to gain freedom. So much is to be gained from a practice like this. Much is to be gained from a culture like this. A culture where we try to imitate the Arahants. A culture where we try to walk in their footsteps. Because however long that culture lasts, however long that situation lasts, it's a stream. It's a stream with the intention to flow towards the Dhamma, to flow away from the external things that one usually grasps, that one usually clings to, and in clinging, pull one all over the place. I saw this, I remember when I was young, there was this movie, Black Sheep. Kind of most people might not have seen that now. But it's this comedy movie, and this guy kind of gets his, I think his tie or something stuck in a trunk. And after that, the car takes off, and he gets pulled like all over the place, I think, by this car. Wherever the car goes, he's got to go, and it doesn't look pleasant. But in any event, whatever a person clings to, whatever they grasp onto and can't let go of, that's what drags them. That's what pulls them around. If the car goes in a place that's good, it pulls them there. If it goes in a place that's bad, it pulls them there. But so long as this clinging exists, a person is pulled. It's kind of like a fish, kind of there's this worm on the hook. If it bites the hook, then it can be pulled wherever that hook exists. So when we come together to meditate, we come together to pull out this hook. Pull out this hook of craving. To pull out this hook of clinging. Because although the worm seems very tempting, kind of grab onto the worm and eat it up, the fact of the matter is that's what allows us to be dragged all over the place. A fish that doesn't have a hook is a fish that's free to swim in the ocean as it likes, to go where it will, at ease. And in the same way, this feeling of happiness, this feeling of ease, is nothing else than the shedding of acquisitions. Nothing else than the cessation of craving. Nothing else than dispassion. Nothing else, ultimately, than nibbana. So hopefully, this is what we come together to create a culture for. To create a culture that slopes, that inclines towards happiness, that slopes, that inclines away from the world, that slopes, that inclines towards nibbana. Now, of course, we'll have to go back, if we're not monks, to our regular life. After this, we can't, if we have jobs and various responsibilities, practice meditation like we're on a retreat. I heard one story of when they first started doing meditation retreats in the West, they just had the retreat. And then the retreat ended, people didn't know what to do. So they had these retreats, they didn't know like the regular practices in their life, right? They had these retreats, and there was a story about, it was a group of lay people who had started these retreats. And they said after one of the retreats, they went to a corner store and they saw one of their, they called them yogis, they saw them doing walking meditation in the corner store in their pajamas. And they thought, well, wait a minute, we should have a way to integrate this into people's life. You can't go doing walking meditation in the corner store in your pajamas. You know, that's not the way to go about doing things. So in other words, once we leave this retreat, if we're not monks, we have to go back to our normal life. We have to go back to fulfilling responsibilities in line with what we have. If we are not monks and nuns, then obviously we have these things to take care of. But what we can take away from this is a bit like a person who climbs a hill with their bike up to the top of the hill. And afterwards, so long as they maintain their momentum, it's a bit more like coasting to maintain that same momentum they got from coming to the top of the hill. So in the same way, whatever momentum in practice, whatever momentum in focus, whatever momentum in goodwill, in metta, in non-anger, whatever momentum and insight might have come from practicing like this for a short time, the true benefits of this retreat come when we go out into our life and we don't give up our practice. When we keep practicing metta, when we keep practicing meditation in a way that we can fit in with our responsibilities. When we're standing in line at the grocery store, instead of thinking about the bills or looking at People magazines. When I go in grocery stores, the few times I go, and they got these magazines right at the checkout, and you're going, I don't want to look. But when we're standing in line, we have this opportunity to cultivate our minds. We have this opportunity to spread metta. Just like when we're doing walking meditation, with the movement, we learn to focus on the same topic with our eyes open, standing in line. That can be our walking meditation. That can be our opportunity to cultivate the breath. That can be our opportunity to spread metta. When we're stopped at a stoplight, that can be our opportunity to spread metta. When we're walking from one place to another, that can be our opportunity to cultivate breathing. That can be our opportunity to spread metta. And in this way, the peace of mind that comes from relinquishment, the peace of mind that comes from detachment can enter into our life, can enter into our daily life. And the momentum that we gain from the retreat doesn't have to be like a sheer drop-off. It can be more like this gradual slope until a time comes some other time when we can imitate the Arahants again, when we can practice like the Arahants again. And of course, all of this is aimed at a single thing, at one thing, at one goal. And that's to eventually, over time, putting the causes into place, find an end to these defilements that cause us to suffer. To take them, as in the Buddha's metaphor, chop them into slivers, have the slivers dried in the sun, light fire to the slivers so they turn to ash, and then take a winnowing basket and winnow them in a strong wind so that even the shadow of whatever tree that was won't arise again. In the same way, there's this possibility for us to practice in such a way that even the shadow of some of our defilements doesn't arise again and doesn't take any effort to maintain. It's permanent. There's no going back from that. And so what the Buddha describes his teachings as is something rare. It's rare to be born as a human, as rare as if there was this whole world was made of water, and they threw a plank on this world made of water, and there was a blind sea turtle. And every 100 years he stuck his head up, swimming in the ocean, he stuck his head up through the ocean. The likelihood, or the sheer coincidence of that turtle sticking its head through the yoke of that board is about how likely it is to be born a human, to encounter the teachings of the Buddha, to be able to practice in line with those teachings, to understand them, and to realize them. So rare is the opportunity to train our minds for the ending of suffering. So rare is the opportunity to find a happiness that's true. And so having this opportunity, having gained this opportunity, we can make the best of it. We can take the retreat and make the momentum continue for the sake of finding this goal, for the sake of finding this cessation of suffering, for the sake of Nibbana.